Okay, part two. So I was getting to the significance of the flying rainbow lasagna. This is really the shape that I invented, in 2001 in the moment of coming here. But it took me many years of percolation in order to be able to understand this and understand what I had even created. What I did as soon as I came in 2001, I started making tons and tons of artwork. I found that I was compelled to keep drawing these patterns that have now become my artwork, but at the time I didn't know what they were. They were just these innate patterns that I was inspired to draw. And I literally filled up notebooks and notebooks and notebooks of it. So this artwork is also very different than the artwork of the previous inhabitant of this body. She had experience in art school. However, the tone of her art and the type of work that she made was very, very different than what I create. And also, I started working in watercolors and using new media that are things that she was not familiar with. So really, this is another total shift in religion and religious belief, a shift in my identity, the name that I call myself, and also a shift in the type of artwork that I started to produce. So I remember at the time, immediately after coming in, I had lost my math skills and lost a lot of my ability to be verbally articulate about my experience. So now I can say, oh, I had this experience, I walked in, I was a new person, and I was also neurologically damaged and had a lot of disruptions and a lot of seizures. Now I can articulate that. But at the time, I was not able to articulate that. So as you could possibly imagine, people who I had in my life at that time and who noticed a change, they noticed behavior that had changed and shifted. They thought that there was a mental illness. They thought that there was something wrong, and I did not have the capacity to articulate fully what was going on. Although I certainly did tell family members, hey, I had this experience, this is what happened, I went through hell, I died, and now I'm in a new place. But for the most part, there was just a total inability to perceive that had happened. And so I was really on a solo journey. I was really on my own on this internal journey, guided by my angelic guides. And after I let go of everything, so I had spent many years just painting and drawing in these notebooks and coming forward with these patterns. And eventually I started playing with folding paper. And what I did was I would roll up cones and then cut the cones apart and then glue them back together. And the way that I liken this, and I'll just say this really fast, it's just like if you brought a shirt back to someone in, the Stone Age, and you said, here's a shirt, it's great, it fits on your body, but in order to figure out how to make another one, you would have to cut it apart and lay it out flat and figure out what it is. Well, I spent a lot of time doing that just to be able to make the flying rainbow lasagna. And it's actually where I have my prototype. This is the original one that I made. And you can see it's pretty rough and ready, but this was the, I created this and then carried it with me in my backpack on all of these adventures through all of these different journeys. And I was trying to articulate to people, I have a message, I have this. I would show it to people and I would say, I'm a walk-in. I didn't actually say I'm a walk-in. What I would say to people is, I'm a dead person. But I realized that that is socially unacceptable and also didn't convey what I was trying to say. And so it wasn't until 2003 or 2004, after I had gone to Woodstock and after, the surrender and after being given my new name, that I finally was given a book called ET 101, which I was like, wow, I've been here for years and I finally got the handbook. And from ET 101, I was able to get the term walk-in. In fact, a friend of mine who became a guide for me and a spiritual, mentor for me, she was like, after I told her my story, she said, you're a walk-in, and she gave me the book. And from that, I understood more of what, and I also had a term to share with others and the understanding that I wasn't the only one. And that was a huge understanding. So very briefly in my life, at that point, I still did not have math skills. And also I had experienced a huge change in my eyesight, in vision. I'm wearing contact lenses right now, but basically my predecessor did not have to wear glasses except for, driving or, like seeing something very far. During the day, she really didn't wear glasses. But because of the neurological difficulties and the damage that happened, one of the things was the eyesight went way down, like by 2 diopters overnight. And so I was walking around without corrected lenses and really couldn't see and did not have math skills. And also, as a stranger in a strange land, as a completely new person dropped down into a new society, it's really much sink or swim, and I did not know the customs of the time and place where I was. There was so much that I didn't know about society and the way it functions, the way that money works. I was not understanding money. And I didn't understand what people really meant when they would, like, if someone asks you to lunch, that they are not simply saying, I want to give you food, that there is also a social contract of other expectations around being at lunch with someone. There were many things. And then there were simple practicalities, like, I had to relearn how to drive a car. How about a washing machine, like learning how to use a washing machine. And what I learned was, because of the negative reaction that I really had and lack of acceptance early on, I learned that you can't just say to someone like, hi, I'm new to this planet, I don't know how to do this, will you show me how? So what I'd play it off legit. I would say, instead of, I don't know how to use a washing machine, I would say, how do I use this washing machine? And it was the implication like, oh, I know how to use every other washing machine, but just this one I need some help on, in order to kind of fake my way through. And so I faked my way through, and I actually had to end up going back to live with her parents, the parents and family of my predecessor, for a little while in her hometown. And that was a fascinating education, because all of a sudden I needed to do that in order to do more of laying her to rest. I needed to understand her background and her family members and her programming. And also I was able to apply that to my understanding of humanity. But that was a crucial for growth in order to, so I was, number one, I was acculturated by going back home to her hometown, and I also learned I got the emotional enzymes that I needed in order to unlock the experiences. Because, okay, when you walk into a physical form, you still have the emotional detritus to clean up, the muscles and fascia and soft tissues of the body and neurology, there's neurological habits. These are all emotional residues of the previous occupants. So it's very much like moving into a house. There's stuff that's in there, but you don't have to keep the stuff that's in there. And I spent a lot of time, I spent many years cleaning out and processing the stuff that was in there that's not mine. And also making a very clear delineation between her stuff and my stuff. Her thoughts, her mentality, and my mentality. And I also liken it to when you move into a house, and it's someone else's furniture, someone else's books on the shelf. You can take down a book and you can read it, but it's not your book. And so at first, when I walked in, I needed to do a lot more of that, because I didn't have my own repertoire of experiences and understanding of humans in order to draw upon. But then as I lived here more and more years and had more experiences, I developed my own library of understanding, my own library of experiences that I now draw upon. And so I've pretty much cleaned out the old files, cleaned out the old unused memories, and certainly cleaned out and put to rest and processed the emotional, as I said, residues of her experiences. And so that was actually some of the first things that I had to do in the first 4 years. But up until 2004, I still did not have math skills, and this makes it almost impossible to function in society as it exists. So like I was a wanderer for a very long time, then I lived with her family, and then I got a job at an art supply store, and in order to put the correct object on the correct shelf, you had to match up serial numbers. And so I had to learn the numbers, and I began to learn to recognize them, and I would sing a song in my mind like 626, 359, and try to match it to what I saw on the wall. And I was rehabilitating myself. I was rewiring, and also with the help and guidance of my angelic guides, recreating or creating anew neural pathways that would allow me to understand numbers. And what happened was I talked my way into a job in the custom framing department of this same store, where they had an employee who totally was not a good employee, who then just one day didn't show up for work. And I went and I applied. I said, look, I can't be any worse than that guy who didn't even show up. Give me a chance. So you can see that through my experiences being here, kind of dropped down into the world and having to find a way to get by, I got very good at, getting people to understand, like, look, I can learn fast. Just give me a chance. And so this supervisor in the custom framing department was generous and gave me that shot and sat me down and was like, well, okay, in order to cut a mat, all you need to do is measure blah, blah, blah inches. And looked at me and said, do you know what an inch is? And I wouldn't say no. I said, why don't you give me the tutorial? And so they had to actually show me, this is an inch, this is half an inch, this is a quarter of an inch. And when this blew my mind, and I saw the inches and I saw them lined up in a linear fashion, and I began to form neural connections of being able to understand numbers, where I would visualize it. All of my math that I've built up is built on visual understanding, and you can see some of my artwork in the background, what I'm talking about, that I began to use the ruler as a way of visualizing numbers, with smaller numbers on the left and larger numbers on the right. And I began to visualize, if I was adding numbers, I would add them together in packets of 10. It all made sense to me visually. And one of my jobs was also to count out the cash register at the end of the night. So I had to learn, in order to, apply my skills to practicality and to getting through life. So I learned I could count up 4 quarters to make $1. And the visualization of those 4 quarters coming together to make $1 was part of my new understanding of math. And what eventually happened was I created my own math system that is based on circles and color and proportion and geometry, or this visual language, and it's very much inspired by this higher dimensional language of color, line, shape, and form that I see with my third eye that my spirit guides have been teaching me. But first I just had to learn basic arithmetic and basic multiplication, and I had to learn how to have a bank account and how to cash a check and handle money, and I had to get my driver's license. All of the identification that had been associated with this personality had been destroyed or left behind, so I needed to get a birth certificate. I needed to get all of this, but all of this was in the name of my predecessor. I still didn't have it in my legal name. I was living under her name, but I was still asking people to call me Aurora. So eventually I moved back to Woodstock and lived here as Aurora, legally changed my name, and in order to do that, I needed to get my birth certificate, social security, driver's license, passport, all under the name of Aurora, and Aurora is my only name. They didn't give me a last name in the clouds, and so when I went to get my driver's license in Albany, they had to have a whole big meeting about what do they do, because they have to have both a first name and a last name on your driver's license. So what they said was that they would make my first name no first name and my last name Aurora. So I'm officially in the records of this time and place NFN Aurora. NFN means no first name, and that's what it says on my driver's license. So what eventually happened was I really had an inner awakening regarding artwork, and as I made more and more painting, like when I was working at that art supply store, I intentionally chose to work there. I was exposed to tons of materials, and I earned enough to rent a small studio, and this has really all been about my journey of expressing myself through artwork, bringing this message of the flying rainbow lasagna. And I was able for many years to speak about it visually by creating images and creating sculptures of it. However, I was not as articulate as I am now about the metaphysical concepts behind it. And it's taken many, many years to grow that neural connectivity to be able to articulate it and describe it. And that journey of my own inner journey of growth has also been mirrored and reflected in the circumstances of the outer world, where not only has the political climate changed, the mass consciousness has shifted and raised its vibration. People now know what a walk-in is. And now when I go to someone and I say I'm a walk-in, and the flying rainbow lasagna is my message, they understand walk-in is synonymous with I'm here with something to say, and this is what I have to say. In the past 2 years, what I have begun to do is record online lessons and to publicize my teachings to a student body. So last year was the first year, and this year I have a 5-month-long course that I teach all about the flying rainbow lasagna and the concepts of basically how to change your genes. And I'm a living example of the flying rainbow lasagna and the fact that, I should have died, but I didn't. And I should have been a vegetable without enough neural processing to be able to speak or function, but I'm not. Because if there were neurological roadblocks that were created through this, I found a way to get up and around them. And this is a story that anyone who's had any kind of physical challenge can relate to, that you do not have to believe in the prognosis or the expectation of diminished capacity because of miracles, because of the flying rainbow lasagna, because of there's a way to get around any blockage, there's a way to grow something new to replace anything that was lost. There is always a way to make it happen. I do math all the time now. I'm excellent at math, and it's totally what informs my artwork, and I do it inside of my head, not using a calculator, and I do it all visually. So really, I feel like what happened in terms of moving into this physical form, I moved into a body. It was like a house that had burned down. It needed tons of renovation work, but the renovations, they didn't just copy what was there before. They have absolutely improved upon what was there and really fulfilled the true potential of the structure. And I feel that way in terms of my mentality and my mental processing. I process things much more quickly now. I think much more quickly than my predecessor ever could. I store information more effectively, and I'm also connected to a higher source of information. Like, people often joke and call me Encyclopedia Aurora, and it's very true. And it's also a little bit like, making fun of me a little bit, because like all you have to do is phrase it in the form of a question, and I tune in and I will give you the answer as if you're, asking Wikipedia or Google search or something like that. And that is that's one of my roles that I play here. So when we talk about, when you come here as a walk-in, or when one comes in, what is the point? And we come in with different capacities, and that's one of my capacities. So I'm here with information to share. I'm here with this technique to share of the flying rainbow lasagna, this concept to share. And also I come with the example of who I am, in order to say that you never have to die. You do not have to die. There is a way to overcome that experience or transcend that experience and have continuity of consciousness, but to change the dimension that you are experiencing, and also that you can change and shift your energy field from a toroidal energy field into this flying rainbow lasagna shape, and that can happen on an inner genetic level, on a molecular or nanostructure level. That can also happen on a macroscopic level, on the level of Earth's magnetosphere, that the whole planet is shifting its consciousness, the whole planet is shifting its magnetic shape from being a toroidal donut to being a flying rainbow lasagna shape. So the concepts in the flying rainbow lasagna are so extensive that literally I give a 5-month-long course all about it, but that you can understand this is the reason why I'm here, and it is the thing that pulled me through the incredible challenges that I had in terms of coming into this body, integrating energy into this body, functioning in this society, and being able to bring this message to people in a way that they could hear it and that they would be receptive to it. So this story of my walking in is also a very long story. This is part 2, and so far this is 40 minutes, but this is also a recap of about 13 years. So thank you for being with me and listening to my personal story. Yes, thank you very much.